Back in Tri-Cities, Washington, ESPN Speed World coverage of the Budweiser Unlimited Hydroplane Racing season. Heat 3B about to get underway as you look at Dr. Ken Muscatel, Jimmy King in the Lumar window film. Bernie Little, meanwhile, updates us on Budweiser's situation.
Well, guys, I don't see a lot of frantic effort on the boat at this point, and I think I probably would if you thought it could be fixed, Bernie.
Well, everything can be fixed. It's like Dave says, if it's a world championship on the line, we'll glue it together. And Dave will bring it in a winner. But it's just too far gone, and on the recommendation of our crew chief, he says we should withdraw the boat, and Dave and I listen to him 100%, and so that's what we're going to do.
Mark, you just about got to have a 100% boat here on the right side where the hydraulic pressure is so tremendous.
Yeah, and it's broken all the way through, and Bernie and Dave opted, and myself, we all decided that maybe we need to worry about Seattle right now.
So the Budweiser guys will wait for Seattle. And now you look at the York Heating and Air boat with Mark Webber at the helm as these boats now prepare for Heat 3B. Again, they have 5 minutes to line up to get into position, and lane 1 seems to be the critical spot. Now, we go back to the Budweiser conversation there. They felt they could have fixed it, but it may have been too much of a hardship, so they'll just wait and go forward in Seattle. There is Nate Brown, who the Budweiser camp believes was at the middle of that controversy.
Well, played a part in it, apparently. That first turn always has a kind of a funneling effect with everybody coming together down there, and so you can point the finger at 2 or 3 boats, perhaps. That yellow boat we saw, the York Heating and Air, now becomes one of the favorites on the day, and we know the Budweiser is not going to win this race.
You take a look there at the Lumar window film coming down the front straightaway. Time now for our Earthlink Performance Corner. Steve Montgomery has more for us.
If our veteran hydro fans will bear with us for just a moment, we want to bring our newer viewers up to speed on the 3 critical components of the racing hardware on an unlimited hydroplane. The rudder, of course, is not a big surprise. These have been around as long as there have been boats. This one is very, very sharp on the leading edge, of course. Propellers still amaze me. How does a prop this size push a 6,000-pound boat 200 miles per hour? You tell me. And, of course, the one item you don't have or need on your pleasure boat is a skid fin. This huge slab of aluminum is bolted into the strongest part of the boat by these huge brackets, and the torque on them in the turns is absolutely incredible. The hydroplane, of course, is shallow draft, no draft to speak of at all, no displacement, and it means that without this skid fin, this boat would become a frisbee and be totally out of control on the surface of the water.
And that is the last thing you would want to happen. There is Mark Webber in the York Heating and Air, a boat that now with Miss Budweiser out of the running becomes a favorite here on the Columbia River. Nate Brown in the Oh Boy Oberto, everybody getting ready for Heat 3B, which is next. Welcome back to the Columbia River, Heat 3B. They line up.
Ken Muscatel takes the Miss Free Eye into lane 1, then Mark Webber in the York Heating and Air. Jimmy King in the Lumar window film will be in lane 3. Nate Brown already a winner today in the Oh Boy Oberto out in lane 4. Looks like a good start, especially for the Italian colors of the Oh Boy Oberto, but he is way outside.
And that outside can be deceiving. It's optically a little bit of an illusion as they come across to that first turn. While he may look like he's in front, he's got a wider turn to make. And that inside lane that Mark Webber has right here is always critical.
These are 1,500-foot turns, TJ, if you're in lane 1. So if you're out in lane 4 or 5, it's more like 2,500 or 3,000. You simply have a longer race course. Now, Mark Webber and the York Heating and Air. We talked about him being one of the favorites on the day. This is the way we expect him to run. One of the best starters in any class of boat racing ever. He brought that up to the Unlimiteds, and he's been very tough, especially when he gets to the inside. So Mark Webber in the York Heating and Air is a teammate to George Stratton in the Appian Geronimo, who we saw win a heat earlier. And now Mark Webber has this heat, Heat 3B, apparently under control.
Taking charge there, you see the margin widening out about 3 rooster tails. Again, if you're just joining us, the Miss Budweiser problems earlier in the day has decided to call it a weekend here in Tri-Cities, Washington, so they are not even involved here in the set of 3 heats or in the final. There is Nate Brown in the Oh Boy Oberto boat, winning a heat, as Steve mentioned earlier, but falling way behind here at the moment. You look back at the battle there for 3rd and 4th from the O'Doul's eye in the sky.
Pretty good race back there for 3rd and 4th. Jimmy King in the Lumar window film was 3rd. Ken Muscatel in the Miss Free Eye giving chase. And meanwhile, way out front, the York Heating and Air, the bright yellow boat owned by Kim and Debbie Gregory out of Las Vegas. Mark Webber, the driver, certainly one of the favorites now on the day. A real buzz here in the pits, TJ, because you take the Budweiser out of the mix and suddenly a bunch of other drivers and team owners are going, hey, we can win this thing. And one of them is the guy in this yellow boat right here, Mark Webber.
If you are new to these broadcasts, the Budweiser has won the first 4 events on the season. Very dominant, but now things appear to be a bit wide open with the York Heating and Air in command here in Heat 3B. These boats all accumulating points, trying to make it to the final, so even a battle back there up high, way up at the top of your screen for 3rd and 4th can be critical. Look at that lead for the York Heating and Air in the first turn.
And look where he came down the front straightaway. You can see his wake back there. He's way out in about lane 4, and the other boats have room to go inside of him if they dare to do that. You can't get caught in a rooster tail in there. Our race for 3rd and 4th continues now. Jimmy King on the outside of the wakes is finding pretty good water and holding on to 3rd place so far over Ken Muscatel.
Jimmy King and the Lumar window film folks there on the back end. Up in the front end, though, the York Heating and Air. Mark Webber, who has won several times in heat races, a couple of second-place finishes, is about to do it again up the front straightaway as the USA Racing Partners will claim another heat here on the Columbia River. Mark Webber takes the checkered flag, a victory in Heat 3B, and it's got to be great news for Kim Gregory and those crews. And Nate Brown and the O'Boy Oberto 2nd, and Jimmy King will hang on and take 3rd place. As you look at the results, the Miss Free Eye ends up in 4th. And down in the pits is Steve Montgomery. Very happy Mark Webber as you see the points accumulating on the day.
I think you said a couple of years ago, start out front and then improve your position. That's exactly what you did.
It's the easiest way around a race course. Something I learned in 23 years.
This race course is a good one, but particularly when you're out front, it can get a little rough for the guys behind you.
That's for sure. It's, you know, we just needed to tune up some things for the final, and we went ahead and used that heat to do it. And I'd say we got a pretty good race ball right now.
Looks like the guy to beat might be your teammate and partner and old buddy.
Probably. Ought to be fun.
How about these USA Racing Partners, huh?
Awesome deal. Got the best team in the pit area right now, man.
Very impressive for the York Heating and Air. We'll see if they can keep it up.
Oh.
Welcome back to Tri-Cities, Washington. ESPN Speed World coverage, Budweiser Unlimited Hydroplane Racing Series, and the Miss Budweiser damaged, unable to race today, so they are done. We'll have a wide open final coming up for the Unlimiteds. Now the Unlimited lights are lining up, Steve Montgomery, for their final race.
Automotive powered, 468 to 511 cubic inches, just about 2,000 pounds for both, about a third the size of the big Unlimiteds, but still capable of speeds over 150 miles per hour, and that is the little Bud. If it looks like the big Bud, it should. Owned by Joe Fronheim and Phil Bonancini. Phil does the driving in the Budweiser Pocket Mechanic. They had not won any of the preliminary heats, but once again, when the chips are on the table and the final heat starts, Phil takes the red boat out front. We've seen this happen before, TJ.
Saw it in the very first Unlimited Lights final of the season in Lake Havasu. Phil Bonancini had not won a race and yet looked very dominant, surprisingly, on Lake Havasu, as you see him come around the first turn on lap number 1 and down that front straightaway. And much like the bigger Budweiser boat, this one assumes the lead and is in command here.
Last season in Hawaii, this boat got upside down. It was badly broken. Some members of the Budweiser team helped Phil and Joe put it back together, and they put Budweiser on the wing back there as a kind of a thank you. Then Bernie actually stepped in with a few bucks and said, hey, you guys look pretty good. Now it is indeed the Budweiser Pocket Mechanic, and look at this lead. It's Bonancini and then everybody else racing on a 1 2/3 course, just a little bit shorter than the big Unlimiteds, but the turns are the same size. That's a great-looking boat ride. Piston power, TJ, and speeds right there, well over 150 miles per hour.
Phil Bonancini extending that lead on the long back straightaway here on the Columbia River and flying beyond the competition here at this point. Look how the boat's handling out of that turn coming up the front straightaway.
I mentioned that the engines in this class are 468 to 511 cubic inches. This team has both motors, and we never know for sure which one they're running. I would wager that this is the big one.
Whatever they're running, it's running well. Here's the battle for second place. That's Dave Bender in the Shields Auto Glass on the outside of the white and brown boat. Inside of him looks like Randy Haas in the Miss Comp Air, but they are trailing big time as you look up high. The pocket mechanic there of Phil Bonancini.
Dave Bender in the Shields Auto Glass having a great weekend. He won one of the preliminaries, as did the boat to his left, Randy Haas, in the Miss Comp Air. And right here, we have a great boat race on the back straightaway, albeit for second place. Nobody is going to catch Bonancini unless something happens to the red boat.
Dave Bender on the outside. Again, optically, it may look like he's farther ahead than he actually is. Still, Randy Haas, though, trailing in third place at this point. Back up front, the pocket mechanic, Phil Bonancini, coming down the front straightaway and about to capture yet another Unlimited Lights final. Again, this boat had not won a race ever until this season, but another win for Bonancini and company in the Budweiser pocket mechanic. They come up victorious here in the Tri-Cities, Washington. And let's take a look at how the Unlimited Lights final ends up. Pocket mechanic finishing first. Shields Auto Glass did hang on for second.
Well, that's kind of what we've expected from the red boat this year. What happened the rest of the weekend?
Man, I tell you what, this sounds trite, but our guys thrashed all weekend. They had some kind of a bugaboo in the fuel system, and they swapped carburetor parts all weekend, finally got it right. Always seems to come together in the final for us. I don't know why.
Another victory. Great job.
Hey, yeah, thanks a lot. I really need to thank Coast Cutlery Company and Budweiser Frame Trucking this weekend for letting us be here. That's really a great job for both guys to support us.
Thank you.
Got to deal with those bugaboos, and they did. We're getting ready for the Unlimited final coming up. George Stratton getting into his boat. Are they going to win it? We'll find out.
Welcome back to the Tri-Cities, Washington, the Columbia River Racecourse now as the Unlimited Hydroplanes begin to pull away from the pit area here. The most wide-open final, perhaps, TJ, that we can remember. Miss Budweiser broken on the trailer, will not be running. The Freddy's Club back in the shop in Seattle, extensively damaged yesterday. It'll come down to the drivers, TJ. It should be a great one. A pick'em final heat here at Columbia Cup 2000.
First time this season that the Budweiser will not be victorious. They are not even in the final race. You look at Mark Webber, who won back in the third set of heats, as did George Stratton, the teammates, the USA Racing partners, preparing, milling around. Very important 5-minute period. And we've seen them in the past try to help each other get lanes 1 and 2. The start will be critical. A very fast boat also, the Miss Elam Plus with Mark Evans, already having won a heat here this weekend on the Columbia River. So all of these boats knowing with the Budweiser out of there, an opportunity for them to take advantage.
Every one of them knowing, along with this man, Nate Brown, in the red, green, and white. Oh boy, Oberto, a good start, a good first turn, and they could win this Budweiser Columbia Cup. Starts have been critical so far. That's what eliminated the Budweiser if you weren't with us earlier. Now get your props running for this week's Alamo Almanac. Ready, set, race. Alamo will get you to the finish line with a smile. And now here's Jim Hendrick.
Thank you very much, DJ. It was 20 years ago here on this Columbia River in Tri-Cities, Washington, that a young driver by the name of John Walters, driving the Pride of Pay and Pack, a turbine, was practicing in just before the race. Coming down the front chute, the boat lifted up, did a 360-degree flip, and then some. The boat badly damaged, the driver hurt. Today, 20 years later, John Walters is a little wiser, but still in the sport as the crew chief of the Lowry, Appian, Geronimo. A little safer here.
Yeah, it's a little bit safer here. I feel a little bit older and like you said, certainly a little bit smarter. I suffered several broken bones, including a broken hip, separation of the hip, a shoulder separation from hanging onto the steering wheel, and some broken up ribs and a severely bruised ego.
2 years later, 1982, Syracuse, you made up for it by being honored by?
Well, that was probably the best part. I can actually say that I'm the first person to ever win a race in a turbine-powered unlimited hydroplane.
Thank you, John, for your time. For the Alamo Almanac, I'm Jim Hendrick.
Jim, thank you. You look at the Zenetics boat with Greg Hopp on board, and Steve Montgomery has our hydrospective with the owner, Fred Leland.
Dave Vilwalk went from being your driver and a guy who really helped you get to the top of the sport to being your primary adversary. What's that relationship like today?
Well, to begin with, I have to say that maybe I helped him get to the top of the sport and that he didn't help me get to the top of the sport. But I think it was kind of a joint venture there. Dave's very competitive. He does very well. That's about all I got to say on that subject.
Your driver, Greg Hopp, is in his first year with you. Young driver, very aggressive driver. How do you think he compares with the competition?
I think Greg Hopp's a great driver. I wouldn't have him. There may be some out there, you know, that might become as good, but right now, in my opinion, he's the only guy that can handle Vilwalk, and he showed it on several occasions. We just got to get on level ground with him.
Well, it's an NX Racing team, and the Elam Plus will be going for it in the final coming up next.